How's it going, backpackers? Dave here with Off Grid. I'm into backpacking, hiking, camping, and gear. And I got another tip video coming at you this week. And this one is going to be all about those tips in order to be comfortable on trail. Now, I might end up doing another video on this. I wouldn't call it a series, but another one that I can kind of think of is how to be comfortable when you're at camp. But maybe I'll do that in the future. But for right now, it's everything to be comfortable on trail. Name of the game on this one is it's going to be all about convenience and comfort. So keep those two adjectives in mind, but let's rifle on through the list for you here today. The first of which is... the first tip that I have for you is to thoughtfully pack your pack with all of the things that you need when you're on trail in the front. So think about like on your person, your shoulder pockets, your hip belt pockets, anything that you can get to more easily so you don't have to reach around back, particularly for like the water bottles or anything else to try and get out of there, or to have to drop pack and try to get it out of the main body of your pack or that back pocket, that big pocket in the back. So you got to think of things that you would need quick access to. Lip balm, hand sanitizer, maybe some tissues, snacks. I keep a sweat rag over here. My water bottle is also in a shoulder pocket. Sunscreen, maybe a bug head net, maybe a headlamp for at night or a flashlight. Just all of those things that you may need to use very quickly or just have quick and easy access to. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is kind of going along with stopping for lunch. And what I mean by that is to either, if you packed a chair or a sit pad, to have those quick and easy to access as well, or relatively easy, particularly if you're stopping for lunch and you're taking your pack off. Just have something that is easier for you to get to. So if you have like a non-frame pack, traditionally I would use something like an 1/8" foam pad as my back panel. That's pretty easy to get to. Or if your chair fits in your side pocket and you're not, worried about putting it in your side pocket, then that's an easy spot for you to put it there. And then, obviously the last section there would probably be to just have it like right on top or close to the top of your roll top so that you can get quick and easy access to the chair that way. The next tip I have for you is going to be for your foot care. And I'm going to say, particularly if you're prone to blisters, I've mentioned this one before, but consider doubling up on your socks. Now this one is going to save you guys, hopefully, in the long run here. It definitely saved me because I was developing some hot spots and some blisters, and I'm always going to give credit where credit is due. And Leonidas on the Trail had tipped me off to this one. He said, have you thought about just doubling up on your socks? And I was like, no, not really, but I gave it a shot and it worked. So particularly for me, I'm going anywhere from 5 to maybe a little bit over 10 miles a day on average, and I haven't had any problems with it so far, knock on wood. But the technique that I've used and that's been successful for me is to go with like an Injinji toe sock liner underneath, and then go with something a little bit heavier weight, to like a Darn Tough sock, like a midweight to heavyweight on the outside, and that just gives you a little bit extra cushion so that you can hopefully prevent getting those blisters on trail. Next tip I have for you is to put on sunscreen before you start your day and before you start hiking, and then keep it handy, keep it like I had mentioned in that hip belt pocket or easily accessible throughout the day so that you can easily reapply. And the reason why you want to do that is because obviously you want to reapply sunscreen so you don't get burned. That's going to help you stay more comfortable, but keeping it handy is also a pro tip for you there, because I've had it in the back panel of my backpack before, and it was always something where maybe I forgot to reapply at lunch, and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to keep on hiking. And then I ended up getting torched, I ended up getting burned, all because I didn't want to drop pack and get that sunscreen out. So keeping it more easily accessible is going to help you to just quickly stop and reapply. You may not even have to stop, you can just keep hiking. Next tip I got for you is going to be to listen to your body, in particular your feet, for those hot spots that I just mentioned with that sock tip, and then also for your shoulders and your hips. Maybe you're not used to carrying a 20+ pound pack around with you for hours on end, right? So just listening to your body and then just figuring out where those pains are coming from. Maybe you have to adjust your load lifter straps, or adjust the weight off of your shoulders down onto your hips. to alleviate those pain points. I usually get them like in my shoulder blades, at the top of my shoulders right here, or if the weight has been riding on my hips for a little bit too long, a little bit lower down, on the tops of the backs of the tops of my hip bones there. And then obviously the hot spots for your feet. Definitely want to stop and take care of those as soon as you can and as soon as you see them. Onto the next one here, and is going to be to don't forget your electrolytes so as not to get dehydrated. You might be wondering, well, what does this really have to do with on-trail comfort? Well, if you're dehydrated, you're definitely going to be uncomfortable, right? So it's really just about replenishing what you lost, replenishing that salt, and keeping you going throughout the day, keeping that fire stoked, right? So the next tip that I have for you is if you're in a high sun-exposed area or trail, and this is in particular if you have lower wind throughout your trip, consider carrying a sun umbrella for you. That's just going to give you max sun protection. You're not going to win any awards for, sexiest hiker when you're out there. That's going to come back around for another tip too. But again, if it's lower wind, definitely consider a sun umbrella. It can be, upwards of like 10 degrees cooler in the shade, especially on those hot days. So that'll definitely come in handy. It also helps you obviously with not getting sunburned as well. But if it is a little bit windier when you're out there, definitely consider getting a hat with a brim to keep the sun out of your face, or, maybe a wider brimmed hat that goes all the way around. And definitely consider getting a sun hoodie, maybe one with the extended, what do you call this, sleeve right here, so that it covers your hand a little bit more, the ones with the thumb holes, just to give you a little bit more coverage. Next tip I got for you is going to be to get lip balm, but get lip balm that is also in the vein of that sunscreen protection as well. So they have sunscreen lip balm, and use that just as much, if not more, than when you apply and reapply your sunscreen on your skin. So those two kind of go hand in hand. If you're going to be, using it on your face and on your arms and legs, just think about like reapplying it to your lips as well, because your lips definitely get dried and cracked out a lot more easily, I've noticed, on trail as well. This next tip that I have for you is kind of going along with what I just mentioned about like the hat and carrying a brim, and this one is if you have a little bit more hair, particularly for the ladies, and then any dude who's not, fully bald just yet. If you have a little bit of hair up on the dome, consider wearing a visor. Don't really see anybody wearing these on trail. I've been wearing them on a couple of my trips, and I gotta say, it is freeing just having your hair going in the wind, and it makes me a little bit more comfortable when my hair is all matted down and greasy and nasty. Like, it's just a lot more uncomfortable for me, and I'm noticing it a lot more. So again, not gonna win any sexy awards with this one, and your camp hair is gonna go wild with it, but you're going to get the breeze up top, and you're going to be a little bit more comfortable going along with that. And this is going to be, ventilating your back, I would say, would be another like side tip kind of going along with that one. You got to think of, your frame packs that are arced a little bit more so that it increases airflow on your back there. If you don't have a frame pack, if you're trying to go lighter, trying to go with a non-frame, consider something like the Vaucluse frame, which basically does the same thing. You're adding weight back, but it is increasing the airflow to your back. That's going to help you avoid that like swampy back. I mean, I've had it so bad that it like goes down into my pants and everything. Like it's gross. So anything that you can do to mitigate that sweaty back and pants situation, then definitely consider it. I've done that in both areas with the visor and the frame, and I gotta say, it does make a difference in your overall comfort on trail. We're moving right along to the next one here, and I'm not sure how many makers are doing this, but if you can, try to consider getting hiking pants or hiking shorts that have an integrated belt into them. I've recently been testing out, sort of on the down low here on the channel, a new pair of pants by Nebu, and they have an integrated belt that is built into them. And that just means that I don't have to really, and it's a little bit more minimalist too, so it doesn't really conflict with the hip belt on my pack. And you don't really have to worry about remembering a belt when you're out there, or worrying about like your pants falling down, or the added weight of it as well. It's just already there and integrated into your pants. So think about getting a pair of pants that have an integrated belt. Next tip is going to be to have hand sanitizer at the ready, sort of going along with one of the first tips that I had mentioned here, like having it, easily accessible, especially for those emergency bathroom pit stops. You definitely want to make sure that you know where, your soap or your hand sanitizer is. On to the next tip here, and it's one that I've mentioned quite a lot on this channel, but it is a lifesaver. I can attest to that myself personally. Use trekking poles when you're out there, folks. Multi-use pieces of gear here, and this is one of them. You're definitely going to save your knees. You're going to prevent those falls. It can be used as an aid to help propel you up those hills, but also as a brake when you're going down hills to prevent those slides and falls. And it can also be used as another tip, which I'm going to save for my last tip here. But the second to last tip that I have for you is, again, I've mentioned this one before too, watch your footing when you're out there. And this is not just for loose rock, scree, or when you're going downhill, but it could also be for, like in my neck of the woods on the West Coast, could be like for snakes. But primarily for most people and in most situations, it's really just making sure that, you're not just like, a tourist in New York City, right? Where like when you're going outside, obviously there's a lot of stuff to see. So you want to like do this all the time and take pictures and all this other kind of stuff when you're on the move. But I would definitely use caution on that. I would say look down almost as much as you're looking up, because you want to watch your footing. You don't want to like roll your ankle really bad or get an injury when you're out there. So looking down when you're on trail, watching your footing, stepping over bushes or roots or rocks, and really kind of like figuring out your next step could pay dividends definitely in the end. And then the last tip that I have for you here to round it all out is, again, not a popular one. Not sure how many people are doing this. I definitely do it, and I feel like sometimes when I go out with other people, they're kind of looking at me like a weirdo here. But I would say, sort of like, was it Jesse Eisenberg in Zombieland? Consider limbering up, right? Consider stretching before you head out there. I do squats. I stretch out the quads, the hammies, my calves and everything. Anything that I can. Definitely like my shoulders, especially after day one. Stretch those out, because that's going to be bothering you. And then going along with that and kind of bleeding into the how to be more comfortable at camp here is to bring a cork ball with you and use that in conjunction with what I just mentioned, your trekking poles, in order to roll out all those sore muscles. So a cork ball is really good for rolling out like your feet. You can use it, have it in your hand and roll out your knees and any other places that are a little bit harder to get. But for the larger muscle groups, you can use your trekking poles to kind of roll out your quads, your hammies, your calves, anything else like that. So I usually bring like an 1/8-inch foam pad or some other sort of ground sheet with me. So as soon as you get to camp, if you bust out the camp chair or whatever, try to stretch again if you can. But if not, use the cork ball on your trekking pole at the very least, and just put that on the 1/8-inch foam mat or the ground sheet there, and just get your foot out of your shoe, roll out your feet, the arches of your feet, and you'll definitely feel a lot better. And that also helps prevent that stiffness where you might have encountered this, right, where you get to camp, you sit down for like a good 20 minutes, half hour to just like relax after a long day. You go to get up and you're like hobbling along like you're the Tin Man out there, and you got to oil up those joints. So this kind of doesn't necessarily prevent it altogether, but it definitely helps to roll out those sore muscles at the end of the day. So that's going to do it for this exhaustive list on all the tips that I have for you this week on how to be comfortable when you're out on trail. Let me know in the comments down below which ones I've missed, and if you're interested in other tips on how to be comfortable when you are trying to sleep at night, I made a video on that one, and I'll throw it up here at the end title cards for you to check out. But yeah, that's going to do it for me on this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, if you're headed off grid, make sure you do your research and you make it a safe one, and I'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget that sweat rag. Super important.